Hey everybody, so hopefully we can finish off this bad boy. I wasn't going to stream today. Actually, I might go and take down and re-put up my Phyrexia video. Like I said, I wasn't going to stream, but this is almost over. So I just want to get this finished so it's not an ongoing thing. I'm going to record some stuff this weekend. I'm on vacation for the rest of October. Might be back in time for Halloween, so maybe we'll have some fun Halloween event. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So hopefully we can just get this done. Then I promise there won't be streams like this for a while at least. I just wanted to get it done. So we're in the final stretch where we're talking about the day of Retribution.
On one of the days in July, when I was roaming around Gersh Park, a group of popular college kids arrived to play kickball in the fields. They all looked like typical fraternity jocks, tall and muscular. The kind of guys I've hated and envied all my life. With them came a flock of beautiful blonde girls, and they looked like they were having so much fun playing together. One of the girls did a handstand in the grass, and her sexy bare stomach showed as her shirt hung down. All of the girls were scantily clad. Rage boiled inside me as I watched those people who thought they were better than me enjoying their pleasurable little lives together. The rage was so intense that I couldn't take it. I was insulted too much. I couldn't leave them without getting some form of revenge, so I drove to the nearby Kmart, bought a super soaker, filled it up with orange juice that I bought at the same store, and drove back to the park. They were still there, having the time of their lives, and I wanted to ruin it for them. I wanted to ruin their fun just like they ruined mine, as they would never accept me among them. I screamed at them, with rage as I sprayed them with my super soaker. When the boys started to yell and chase after me, I quickly got into my car and drove away. I was getting with the and created excitement. I wished I could spray boiling oil at the foul beasts. They deserve to die horrible, painful deaths just for the crime of enjoying a better life than me. I drove to a...
And as I was saying to a friend of mine earlier, when I was talking to him about this, I think the thing you have to keep in mind with Elliot Rodgers is Elliot Rodgers isn't exactly... in a way, he's not really depressed. In a way, he's not really even has anxiety. He's a pathological narcissist. And more than that, he's basically a sociopath, in my humble view. If you notice, like, a lot of this is just him saying, like, these people are guilty of having a better life than me. These people are happy and I'm not happy. I've had to rot in bleak loneliness. He's not even really depressed per se about his life. It's a little more complicated than that. He more, almost to me, hates people because of his because they're happy. It's not even so much that his life is bad, he just hates other people because they're happy. And I say he's a sociopath because if you notice, he has no empathy for anyone. At no point during this book does he ever express an ounce of empathy for any of the people he's talking about. He doesn't even see them as human beings. He just views them as detractors, as people who are in opposition to him. He just views everyone as being an enemy. It's kind of hard for me to explain. Kind of one of the characteristics of autism is an inability to separate the internal external world. There's a tendency to almost see your thoughts as being real and not being able to necessarily differentiate people from your thoughts. I guess is kind of a way of putting it, is how it's been described to me. And he certainly has that. He kind of only understands things in relation to himself. He doesn't, like, his idea of love is entirely about what people can do for him. It's utterly selfish, and all his relationships with other people are entirely selfish. And to me, that's the reason what makes him a bad person. It's not that he was depressed. It's not that he had social anxiety. It's not that he had, like, in some regards, a bad situation with his parents. The issue with Elliot Rodgers is that he has no empathy for anybody. And he's never had any empathy for anybody. Like, even if we go back as far as we can in this book, and keep in mind, this is the book he wrote to try to make himself look better. This is an extremely biased autobiography. And even within this, he can't come across as looking like a normal, well-adjusted person. So, we'll get back to
a secluded corner of the parking lot at the Camino Real Marketplace nearby, my heart beating rapidly. After I had calmed down, I was overcome with the worry and fear that I would get in trouble for it. I wondered with panic if there were any cameras at the park that could have caught me in the act. The worry lasted for a few days, but eventually I became relieved that no trouble came out of it. My mother and sister came up to Santa Barbara for my 21st birthday. I didn't want them to come up, but they came anyway. I suppose my mother felt sorry for me, that I would be alone on my 21st birthday. And it's true, I would have been alone. Isn't that such a sad thing to contemplate? Being alone on my 21st birthday. Most other men have huge drinking parties with their friends and girlfriends to mark the passing over the legal age limit to drink alcohol. I've read stories online of how exciting other men's 21st birthdays are. I had absolutely no one to celebrate mine with. Having no friends, the only people who even wished me a happy birthday were my immediate family members. When my mother and sister arrived in Santa Barbara, they wanted to meet up at a restaurant in State Street, but that prospect horrified me. State Street was filled with young couples walking around arm in arm as they went out on their blissful dates. I was already tortured at the fact that I was now a 21-year-old virgin. I didn't want to torture myself anymore. I looked online for a quieter restaurant that we could meet at, a place where young couples most likely wouldn't know about. I came across a secluded Japanese restaurant in Montecito named Sakana. I suggested this to Mother, and since it was my birthday, she gave me the choice of where to eat. I met the two of them outside the restaurant as they were waiting to be seated. I was in a sullen and depressed mood. Turning 21 as a kissless virgin was indeed a dark day. How pathetic it was, to be 21 and still a virgin while kids were having sex at the age of 14.
I remember when Ramsey Paul did a video on George Washington. He said when George Washington was 21, he was still a virgin. But he fought in the French Indian War, got promoted to colonel, and kicked some serious ass. And there was lots of... It wasn't uncommon back in the day for people to be virgins into their 20s. It's just not that weird. But they were able to deal with it. And this guy just wasn't at all.
14. The unfairness of life on this world is staggeringly horrific. The restaurant Sakana turned out to be a very good choice. They served the most delicious Japanese food I had ever tasted in my life. They had so many creative dishes to try, and I ordered so many meals that the bill reached over $200. I eagerly devoured all of it, compensating for my sorrows with delectable food. My mother loved the restaurant as well. She had been to all of the best Japanese restaurants in Law, with her various wealthy boyfriends, and she proclaimed that Sakana topped all of them. From this point onwards, it would become a tradition for us to eat here whenever my mother came up to visit me. After dinner, we went to the Starbucks in Montecito, and I washed the exquisite meal down with a nice warm latte. I never explored much of Montecito before, and I found it to be a lovely, beautiful place. It reminded me of Calabasas, though much quieter and more conservative.
I have a confession, I've never had a latte. I'm cheap, so I normally just get like a large double-double at Tim's or something like that. Yeah. I don't know if I've never spent $200 on food. I don't know when I was living on my own if I ever spent that much on groceries for a week. I think the max I ever spent was like 80 to 100 for like a week of food. I don't know, this guy lives such a privileged life.
Conservative. I figured I would be spending a lot more time there in the future, 21 years old. In August, I continued to build up my faith that I'm destined to win the Mega Millions jackpot. It is the future that was meant for me. The perfect, happy conclusion to the tragic life I've had to experience in the past. I couldn't wait to rub my status as a wealthy man right in the faces of all the people who looked down on me, and all of the girls who thought of me as unworthy. I knew that once I had become wealthy, I would finally be worthy enough to all of the beautiful girls. I spent the whole month meditating in my room or roaming around the park, visualizing the final outcome of my victory. Through the power of the law of attraction, which I had studied so intensely with the new book I found, I felt certain that I would become the one. I looked forward to it with profound eagerness. This was also the last month I had at the apartment unit I was staying in. I was set to transfer to a room in the main complex of Capri Apartments for the next school year. The conflict between Spencer and I had calmed down over the summer. He brought a few girls to his apartment, but they were all ugly, so I tried not to get jealous. I still hated him for the fact that he was able to witness how lonely and miserable my life was. I had spent an entire year in Isla Vista, Santa Barbara, and I had not had a single girl into my apartment. The pure rage and hatred I felt over the fact was enough, but to have someone like Spencer in my vicinity to judge me on it was salt.
I admit I'm a caffeine addict. There, I said it. I drink a lot of coffee. I occasionally have energy drinks. It is my, I don't drink alcohol. Caffeine's really the only drug I indulge in. I've never done marijuana, never drank. I'm going to Spain next month, so maybe I'll try some wine while I'm there. But, yeah. I've never drank.
Was salt on the wound. I made plans to track Spencer down once I become wealthy and arrogantly show off my new life to him. That would be the only way to get even. I wanted to show to Spencer,
Sorry, just if I can do some cringy out loud red text. Implying that you're not wealthy spends $200 on a dinner.
Show to the whole world that I had worth. I didn't think much about my imminent move to a new room, nor did I think much about who my new housemates would be. I firmly believed that I would win the lottery before then. I would then go back to my mother's house, show her my ticket, and buy a mansion of my own to begin a new life of heavenly bliss. One could say that I was being delusional, but my desperation for happiness was so intense that I wanted to believe that this was true. I wanted to believe that I had the power to invoke this into my reality. I have craved power and significance all my life.
Why wasn't this guy on medication? This guy obviously needs to be on something. I don't know if he'd need to be on an antipsychotic, because he definitely has, like, psychotic aspects to his worldview. He's definitely delusional. I don't know if, like, an antidepressant is... Because I honestly don't think depression is his problem. I think his narcissism is his problem. And his... There's people who hate the world because they're depressed. And I know I was like that, and I frequently get into that. But it's not this personal normally. It's a general feeling the world's unfair. It's not this self-absorbed, if that makes any sense. So, yeah.
Life, and I will stop at nothing to find ways of attaining it. Before I knew it, my lease at my current room ended, and on September 5th, I transferred to the new room. Spencer and I didn't deign to say goodbye to each other. We despised each other that much. I knew I would see him again. When I tracked him down to show off my wealth that I firmly believed I would attain, I found out that my new apartment in the main complex of Capri was the same exact apartment unit that I stayed in for the first month I had in Santa Barbara, apartment number 7 on Seville Street. When I moved all of my belongings in, it was all empty. The manager told me that 2 housemates would be moving into the second bedroom within 2 weeks hence. I trusted that the manager had a sense to pair me with mature people, knowing my experiences with those 2 barbaric housemates I had to deal with a year previously. By the time I moved in, the jackpot had finally risen over $100 million. This was the moment of truth. I had been waiting all summer for this to happen. Overcome with trepidation, I spent the next week in my new room, meditating and visualizing winning the lottery very soon. I could feel the excitement I would feel once I see the 6 numbers on my ticket match the numbers that would be drawn. I imagined myself jumping up and down with joy once my victory was confirmed, on September 11th.
Now here's the question. Would winning the lottery have made him happier? No, winning the lottery would not have made him happier. Nothing would have made this guy happier. If he had won the lottery, then he still wouldn't have gotten any women, and yeah.
September 11th, the drawing for a jackpot worth $120 million commenced. I bought a $5 ticket and proclaimed that this had to be mine. When I saw that the winner was from California, my heart beat like a drum. This was it. Fate was being decided right at that moment. Slash didn't win. I looked at my ticket over and over again, and then at the winning numbers. No match. It was just like what happened in March, except this was worse because I had built up anticipation for the entire summer. The winner was some guy from Riverside. He took my money. What a waste. What an injustice. I was so certain that the universe would finally grant me salvation after a life of torture and suffering. I then looked at my small, cramped room and realized that my lonely, depressing life of virginity will continue on mercilessly. That night, I threw a wild tantrum, screaming and crying for hours on end. I had the whole apartment to myself, so there was no one there to hear me. I raged at the entire world, thrashing at my bed with my wooden practice sword and slashing at the air with my pocket knife. I even downed an entire bottle of wine and got so drunk that I spilled my wine all over my laptop, permanently destroying it. I soaked my pillow with tears as I drifted off to sleep in my lonely bed. On the next morning, I felt so drained and depressed. I then realized that I destroyed my laptop, so I called my mother, begging her to buy me a new one. I made up the story that the laptop randomly died and I had no control over it. After some persuading, I managed to make her agree to buy me a new one. I quickly drove...
What a douche. What kind of asshole destroys his own laptop like that? I don't know. But as was pointed out by Saber in the chat, and this is something I've been mentioning, and why didn't his father just be like, look, Elliot, I'm a wealthy director. I know people in the film industry. I'm going to get you in with somebody. Maybe you study some film in school. I'm going to get you... You'll probably have to start getting these people coffee. But I'm going to get you in with somebody. You're going to learn film. And you're eventually going to get a good job in this industry. And I'm going to teach you everything I know. That is like what a responsible parent would have done. Who knows? Maybe his father tried to do it. Maybe it's kind of like Chris Chan, where the dad just realized his son was a complete fuck up, so he thought it was better to try to just stop him.
Drove to Best Buy to look for a new laptop and decided to choose a newer, updated version of the Asus laptop I had previously. As it turned out, the Best Buy in Santa Barbara didn't have one in stock, so I had to drive all the way to Oxnard to pick one up. I paid $1,500 for it, with the assurance that my mother will drive up to bring me a reimbursement in a few days. I had to wait a few hours for them to prepare the laptop for me, and while I waited I decided to go to the shooting range in Oxnard. I had the knowledge, in the back of my mind, that the day of retribution was very possible now. Going to the shooting range while I waited for my laptop gave me the perfect opportunity to gain some initial training in shooting guns, which will be the main weapons I use as vengeance against my enemies when the day of retribution ultimately comes to pass. I walked into the range, readied a handgun from the ugly old redneck cashier, and started to practice shooting at paper targets. As I fired my first few rounds, I felt so sick to the stomach. I questioned my whole life, and I looked at the gun in front of me and asked myself, what am I doing here? How could things have led to this? I couldn't believe my life was actually turning out this way. There I was, practicing shooting with real guns because I had a plan to carry out a massacre. Why did things have to be this way? I silently questioned myself as I looked at the handgun I was holding in front of me. I paid my fee and left the range within minutes, feeling as if I was going to be sick. I spent the rest of the waiting period at the Coffee Bean in Oxnard, where I sat by myself feeling absolutely disgusted.
Okay, so here I have some. I have a clip from an actual interview with Elliot Rodger's father.
Hey, what's up, my friend?
After this fucking ad stops playing.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
He's been here once tonight. I think he'll come back. I'm gonna wait for him.
He didn't go back to
I
the
still think I
sorority.
should notify the radio and television.
No. If you do that, they'll see him in every street corner. They'll look for him in every house. Just tell your men to keep their mouths shut and their eyes open.
I'll check back in an hour.
So that was in when his father was being interviewed by the police. Yeah. Anyways.
Disgusted. My whole world was twisted. Within the following days, I spent a lot of time at the park, watching the wind blow through the trees and the children playing in the fields. I questioned the very fabric of reality. Why did this all exist? I wondered. How did life come to be? What was the nature of reality? What was my place in all of it? There was no point to my life anymore. I was never going to lose my virginity. I was never going to get a girlfriend. Because girls are repulsed by me, I was never going to have children and pass on my genes. The only way that I could have been worthy enough to beautiful girls is if I become wealthy at a young age, and the faith I had in it happened had just been crushed. There was no hope left. The life I could have had ceased to exist. I will never have sex, never have love, never have children. I will never be a critter, but I could be a destroyer. Life had been cruel to me. The human species had rejected me all my life, despite the fact that I'm the ideal, magnificent gentleman. Life itself is twisted and disgusting, I mused. Humans are brutal animals. If I cannot thrive among them, then I will destroy them all. I didn't want things to turn out this way. I wanted a happy, healthy life of love and sex. But if I'm unable to have such a life, then I will have no choice but to exact revenge on the society that denied it to me. My new housemates moved into the other room of my apartment at the end of September. They didn't know each other before they moved in, which was better for me because then they wouldn't gang up on me. Not like they would do such a thing anyway, since my 2 new housemates were both timid, geeky types. One of them was a funny-looking curly-haired boy named Chris Rugg, and the other was an Asian American named John. After the first few days of their stay, I felt content with these new housemates. They were quiet, respectful, and very friendly. And best of all, they never invited any friends over. I doubt they even had any friends. All they did was stay in their room and played video games all day. Of course, I had no desire to be friends with them, because they had absolutely nothing to offer, but I knew I would have no problems with them in my apartment, and that was the best I could hope for. On Halloween weekend, I made a wise decision to go home to my mother's house. There was no way I was going to torture myself by staying alone in my room while the entire town of Isla Vista erupted in raucous debauchery. All of the tall, hunky jocks that girls love so much will be having all of the sex and all of the fun, while an unwanted outcast like myself would rot in loneliness. I imagine that some attractive guys who only visited Isla Vista for the Halloween event will be getting laid at weekend. They'd be getting sex from just one night in Isla Vista, while I'm still a virgin after living there for over a year. It was too unfair. I wanted to punish them all. I imagined how sweet it would be to slaughter all of those evil, slutty bitches who rejected me, along with the fraternity jocks they throw themselves at. To see them all running from me in fear as I kill them left and right, that would be the ultimate retribution. Only then would I have all the power. They treated me like an insignificant little mouse, but on the day of retribution, I would be a god to them. They will be the mice, and I will be the predator. I considered setting the date for the day of retribution to be the next Halloween of 2013. That would give me a year to prepare, but I soon dismissed it. If the day of retribution were to happen, it would have to be on a normal weekend. There would be too many cops walking around during an event like Halloween, and cops are the only ones who could hinder my plans. I spent the time in Mother's house relaxing and trying to forget about Halloween.
The jerk
I drank
cops.
some of my mother's delicious wine until I was too buzzed to think about how much fun everyone else my age was having on that night. I didn't even bother to register for college classes that semester. There was no point. I believed that I would either fulfill my dream of becoming wealthy at a young age in order to be worthy enough to attract beautiful women, or exact my revenge upon the world and die in the process to escape punishment. There was no other path for me. Of course, I registered for some classes, but only to keep up the pretense to my parents that I was still attending college. If they somehow found out that I had dropped my classes right after registering for them, they would have stopped all of their support for me, and my life would have to end right then and there. Thankfully, I was a good liar. During the autumn of 2012, I had all the time in the world to figure out how I was going to triumph against the society that was torturing me. I spent a lot of time at the library in Galita, just a few miles away from Isla Vista. At the library, I read countless books on history, business, and philosophy, learning as much as I could. It was better than staying at home in my room. Besides, I didn't want my housemates to find out that I wasn't going to college. That would be embarrassing, and I always cared about what others thought about me, even my nerdy housemates. I continued to visit the website of the Mega Millions lottery. I still clung to the hope that it may rise above $100 million again and I would be the winner. So far, I saw that as my only way out of my horrible situation. My situation was indeed horrible. I couldn't leave the house without seeing a young couple walking around somewhere. Everywhere I...
Literally, the only solution was to win the lottery. There is no other solution with life. Let's see here. Let me just go ahead a bit. See here. Okay, I'm just skipping.
Preparing for the day of retribution, even though I hadn't yet had any idea of what day that would be. My first act of preparation was to purchase my first handgun. I did this quickly and hastily at a local gun shop called Galita Gun and Supply. I had already done some research on handguns, and I decided to purchase the Glock 34 semi-automatic pistol, an efficient and highly accurate weapon. I signed all of the papers and was told that my pickup day was in mid-December. That fell in nicely, because that was when I was planning on staying in Santa Barbara Teal. After I picked up the handgun, I brought it back to my room and felt a new sense of power. I was now armed. Who's the alpha male now, bitches? I thought to myself, regarding all of the girls who've looked down on me in the past. I quickly admired my new weapon before locking it up in my safe and preparing to go back to my hometown for the winter break. I didn't attend Millennialson's Christmas party that year, nor would I ever again. The only person I ever really hung out with at those parties was James, and James was no longer my friend. It would have been extremely awkward to be there while James is there, knowing that the two of us, who used to be old friends since first grade, would be avoiding each other. It would be a foul and bitter experience, and I had already gone through enough anguish in the last few months. A few days before Christmas, I took off with my mother and sister for another vacation in England. She had called me a month previously to tell me about it. At first, I didn't want to go, knowing that I will feel miserable about going on a vacation without a girlfriend to experience it with me, along with the shame of having to once again appear to my relatives in a fashion that I was unsatisfied with. A year had passed since the last trip, and I was in exactly the same position in life. I had nothing for my grandmothers to be proud of. No girlfriend, no future prospects, no life at all to talk about. The one thing that persuaded me to go was the fact that my mother planned to have us travel on Virgin Atlantic upper class, the highest form of travel the airline offers. I hadn't traveled first class for a long time, and I just couldn't refuse such an offer. I have always had a penchant for luxury, opulence, and prestige. And traveling on Virgin Atlantic upper class would give me that experience, if only for a short time. After all of the anguish I had been through, I figured I needed a sense of respite by going on this luxurious vacation. For just this one brief period of my life, since I speculated that my life could very well be ending soon, I decided to try my best to forget about everything and indulge myself in every way I could on this trip to England. Before we took off, we spent some time at the exclusive upper-class lounge at the LAX airport. There was a buffet with all sorts of goodies for me to pick at, and I had my fill of smoked salmon and champagne. While there, I had a discussion with my mother about whether I had any more hope in my life, and what I could possibly do to get what I want in life. As holders of first-class tickets, we skipped to the front of the line as we boarded the plane, and I took great satisfaction as I passed by all of the other people who flew economy, giving all of the younger passengers a cocky little smirk whenever they looked at me. Once I had settled in my big, luxurious bed seat in the first-class cabin, I had even more champagne, followed by an exquisite dinner of steak and potatoes.
Okay, let me skip ahead. This is fucking boring. Let's see here.
That hope was shattered after each attempt. None of the tickets I bought on those trips fulfilled my dreams. The reason I kept going, even after I didn't win, was because I truly believed I was supposed to win. I wanted to believe it because I wanted something to live for. I needed to have hope. I knew that if I lost all of my hope, I would have nothing to live for but revenge. Any chance of having a happy life would be doomed. At the end of March, when I checked my last set of tickets that I had bought for my last trip to Arizona, and saw that I didn't win, any hope I had of becoming wealthy at a young age was finally and indefinitely shattered. It fully dawned on me that the life I had envisioned for myself would never come to pass. The children I would have in the future with a beautiful blonde girlfriend ceased to exist, as if they were murdered. There won't be any beautiful blonde girlfriend for me now. No girl would be my girlfriend unless I had great wealth. I learned that from my life of being rejected. I was doomed to a life of lonely virginity. In April, the Powerball lottery was introduced in the state of California, so if I ever wanted to play it again I would no longer have to drive to Arizona. However, I was so shaken by not winning in the last few months that I gave up on it for a while, but eventually I would have episodes of little surges of hope in which I'd buy a few tickets, just to have something to hope for as I endure the last few months of my torturous life. All of those little surges of hope, of course, would be shattered as well, during the spring of 2013.
Okay, this guy spends more money on the lottery than I make in a month. Like, this guy just spends so much cash. Like, I can't even, like, if I had the amount of money this guy did, I mean, what was so bad about his life? He had his own apartment. He had, okay, so he had his own apartment. He had all this money. His mother just bought him a laptop, like, just out of nowhere. He got to go to university. He was living in, like, one of the nicest places in the country, and he had no responsibilities. I understand this guy's life looks pretty good.
2013, I began to seriously think about planning the day of retribution. My next step towards planning for it was to buy my second handgun, a Sig Sauer P226. It is of a much higher quality than the Glock, and a lot more efficient. In turn, it was also a lot more expensive. My Glock 34 was around $700, whereas my new Sig Sauer P226 was $1,100. These prices were of no concern to me, however. When I first moved to Santa Barbara and experienced all of those horrible revelations about the nature of humanity, I knew that something like the day of retribution could very well happen if the world continued to mistreat me. I began to carefully save up all of the money that my parents and grandmothers were sending me. It was an ample amount to live on, leaving me with a lot left over to build up in my bank account. When I hit the $5,000 mark, which was fairly soon after my move to Santa Barbara, I decided never to go under it, deeming that $5,000 was enough to buy all of the supplies and equipment I would need if I had to do something like this. The day of retribution had always been in the back of my mind as a final solution if all else failed in my life, ever since I had moved to...
Okay, let me skip ahead. This is really boring. Let's see here. Just him rambling. Okay.
After a lot of thinking, I came to the conclusion that the day of retribution will take place in Isla Vista. On weekend nights, the streets of Isla Vista are always flooded with young couples and good-looking popular kids walking to their parties. What better place is there to exact my retribution on my enemies? Every time I walked around Isla Vista, trying to meet girls or fit in with popular kids, I've only been treated with disdain, as if I'm an inferior mouse. On the day of retribution, the tables will indeed turn, I mused to myself. I will be a god, and they will all be animals that I can slaughter. They are animals. They behave like animals, and I will slaughter them like the animals they are. It came to a point where I had to set a date for the day of retribution. I originally considered doing it on the Halloween of 2013. That is when the entire town erupts in raucous partying. There would literally be thousands of people crowded together who I could kill with ease, and the goal was to kill everyone in Isla Vista to utterly destroy that wretched town. But then, after seeing footage of previous Halloween events on YouTube, I saw that there were too many cops walking around. It would be too risky. One gunshot from a cop would end everything. The day of retribution would have to be on a normal party weekend, so I set it for sometime during November of 2013. This goal would give me 5 months to plan and prepare. 5 more months of life, but then again I wouldn't even call it life. The existence I've had on this world during the last 8 years is anything but life. A feeling of overwhelming dizziness and anxiety swept over me. I was actually going to die. I couldn't believe it. Then I realized that my life was already over anyway. I was never going to lose my virginity. I was never going to experience love and sex. I was never going to have children. This final act of retribution is the only thing I can do. It was very hard to come to terms with
Only
this
thing,
fact.
nothing
I felt
else.
very trapped and lost. I hated the feeling of being trapped and lost. I wanted a way out, but I saw none. I had already spent 2 years in Santa Barbara, and I was still a virgin. There was no way I could ever attract the girl without becoming extremely wealthy, and all of my prospects of becoming wealthy at a young age seemed impossible now. In the beginning of summer, I went on a few walks around Isla Vista during daylight hours. While on these walks, I saw so many attractive young people walking around in their little groups, having the time of their lives. Some of the guys...
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead. This is fucking boring.
In July, I spent a lot of time exercising in my room in a final effort to appear as attractive as possible to girls. I proposed that after 2 weeks of rigorous exercising, I will try my hardest to go out in Isla Vista and do everything I can to meet a girl and lose my virginity. It had been a long time since I went out to Isla Vista by myself, but I knew that I had to do it. I had nothing to lose, and my whole life was on the line. Before I would set the definite decision to plan the day of retribution, I wanted to give women and humanity one more chance to accept me and give me a chance to have a pleasurable youth. I resolved...
The one last chance to the world. This is their last chance, world. So at this point, the world has become a detractor. The entire planet is a detractor and it has to be destroyed. The funniest part about this is he completely failed at he failed at being a mass killer. Like, there's no reason he couldn't have had a higher body count. I mean, I don't know. He was even shitty at dying.
Resolved that if I go out to Isla Vista for this final time, and I still end up going back to my room as a lonely virgin, I will have no choice but to plan my retribution. I even attended college at SBCC again.
No choice. None.
Again. I signed up for a summer sociology class and attended it for a week, before dropping it out of the familiar frustration of girls talking to other boys instead of me. This last-ditch effort of desperation to once again try to live an enjoyable college life in Isla Vista came to an ultimate and devastating culmination on Saturday night, July 20th, just a few days before my 2020 birthday. It was the day that I decided to...
Let's see here. Let me see.
As I stumbled a few yards down Del Playa with my shattered leg, I realized that someone had stolen my Gucci sunglasses that my mother had given me. I loved those sunglasses and had to get them back. I vehemently turned around and staggered back towards the party. At that point, I was so drunk that I forgot where the party was and ended up walking onto the front yard of the house next to it, demanding to know who took my sunglasses. The people in this house must have been friends with the ones I previously fought with, for they greeted me with vicious hostility. They called me names like faggot and pussy, typical things those types of scumbags would say. A whole group of the obnoxious brutes came up and dragged me onto their driveway, pushing and hitting me. I wanted to fight and kill them all. I managed to throw one punch toward the main attacker, but it only caused them to beat me even more. I fell to the ground where they started kicking me and punching me in the face. Eventually, some other people from the street broke up the fight. I managed to have the strength to stand up and stagger away. It was the first time in my life that I had been truly beaten up physically to the point where my face was bruised up. I had suffered a lot of bullying in my life, but most of it wasn't physical. I had never been beaten and humiliated that badly. Everyone in Isla Vista saw what happened, and it was truly horrific. The worst part of this whole ordeal was not getting beaten up. Oh no. It was the fact that no one showed any concern. There was only one group who helped me to the end of Del Playa, but after that they abandoned me. Not one girl offered to help me as I stumbled home with a broken leg, beaten and bloody. If girls had been attracted to me, they...
Let's see here. Okay, 22 years old.
The highly unjust experience of being beaten and humiliated in front of everyone in Isla Vista, and their subsequent lack of concern for my well-being, was the last and final straw. I actually gave them all one last chance to accept me, to give me a reason not to hate them, and they devastatingly blew it back in my face. I gave the world too many chances. It was time for retribution. I went into surgery in the beginning of August. After visiting the local orthopedist, he recommended that I have my broken ankle surgically screwed in place instead of waiting for it to heal by itself. I decided to go through with it, just so I could be out of crutches sooner. My mother drove me to the hospital early in the morning, and I was wrought with fear. I had never been through such a thing in my life. They put me to sleep with anesthesia, and when I woke up my leg burned with pain, though the pain medication they injected in me afterward helped ease this. A new cast was placed on my leg. I didn't even want to think about what it looked like underneath. I was told that they screwed in a titanium plate to hold the fractured bone in place, and it required 6 screws. I rested in the hospital for a few hours before I was allowed to go home, under the instructions that I would have to keep my leg raised at all times for the next week. Shortly after my surgery, my mother and sister went on a vacation.
Let's see here. Let me just go ahead. Sorry, he's just kind of rambling. Okay, let's see here.
Towards the end of the month, my mother invited Maddie and Mo Humphreys over for dinner. Mother had recently been reconnecting with her old friend Mo. Maddie had just graduated from USC, a university renowned for its abundance of spoiled, bratty students who partied all the time, very similar to UCSB. I often call USC the University of Spoiled Cunts, just like I call UCSB the University of California's Spoiled Brats. Brilliant, fitting nicknames. Before Maddie came,
okay, I might have gone past this, so I'm just gonna play this in case. Okay, no. That was not it. Let me see here. Let me just find this excerpt. No, I can't find it. Too bad. Oh well, it is what it is.
Facebook for a bit, and I saw that she was the exact image of everything I hated in women. She was a popular, spoiled USC girl who partied with her hot, beautiful blonde-haired clique of friends. All of them looked like absolute cunts, and my hatred for them all grew from each picture I saw on her profile. They were the kind of beautiful, popular people who lived pleasurable lives and would look down on me as inferior scum, never accepting me as one of them. They were my enemies. They represented everything that was wrong with this world. Maddie was my first friend in America. As a child, I played with her as an equal. Now she was my enemy. I would take great delight in torturing and flaying her and every single one of her spoiled, obnoxious evil friends.
Whoa, that escalated pretty quick. Holy fuck.
Friends. When she and her mother came to eat dinner with us, I had to keep calm as I hobbled out of my room on my crutches to greet them. That relaxing month at Mother's was like the comfort before the storm. Once I go back to Santa Barbara, fully recovered, the final dark chapter of my life will commence. I dreaded what will come of it. After 6 weeks of hobbling about on crutches whenever I had to go somewhere, I visited my orthopedist, asking if it was finally time for me to walk without them. After examining my leg, he agreed that I can proceed to a walking cast. This would enable me to limp around, without crutches, though I would have to use a cane. Though uncomfortable, it was much, much better than having to go about on those damnable crutches. When I got home, I delightedly practiced moving around with this new setup. Before long, my mother said I was now well enough to return to Santa Barbara. My new college classes were starting soon anyway, though she didn't know that I had only signed up for online classes for the autumn semester out of fear that I might have to start college while still crippled. She had grown tired of having to deal with me, as she always was in the past. I spent a few more days at Mother's with my walking cast and cane before she made me go back to Santa Barbara, telling me I can return to visit in 2 weeks. I made my ominous drive back to Santa Barbara, and as I drove I thought about all of the injustices I had to face in the last 2 years I had spent there. Injustices that had never been set right. Now was the time to set them right. Now was the time for retribution. When I got back to my apartment, I saw that my housemates Chris and John had moved out. A pity, as they were the most pleasant housemates I could have hoped for. I feared what my new ones would be like, and I was told they would be coming in a few weeks. I had the place to myself in that period, which suited me well. I refused to leave my room at all until I was able to at least lose my walking cast. I spent the time doing the same thing I did at Mother's house. I watched a lot of movies, and sat around contemplating my future. Upon my visit home, I went to see my orthopedist for one last time, and he told me I can finally walk without any cast around my leg, though I would need the cane for a few more weeks. I was content with this, as I didn't mind the cane that much. It had a peculiar elegance about it. On that same weekend, I met up with Philip and Addison. We had been planning to meet during the summer, but I had to postpone it because of my terrible injury. I took them out in my father's Mercedes SUV, and we went on another one of our adventures around Los Angeles. First, we went to an exquisite Japanese restaurant on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. I was thankful I did.
Okay, let me see here. Let me just skip ahead. What am I trying to find? It's just him rambling. Okay, here we go. We're getting to like the really good
Two
part.
housemates moved into my apartment for the autumn semester. They were two foreign Asian students who attended UCSB. These were the biggest nerds I had ever seen, and they were both very ugly with annoying voices. My last two housemates, Chris and John, were nerds as well, but at least they were friendly and pleasant. These two new ones were utterly repulsive, and one of them had a very rebellious demeanor about him. He went out of his way to start arguments with me whenever I raised the issue of the noise he made. Hell, even living with Spencer was more pleasant than these two idiots. I knew that when the day of retribution came, I would have to kill my housemates to get them out of the way. If they were pleasant to live with, I would regret having to kill them, but due to their behavior I now had no regrets about such a prospect. In fact, I'd even enjoy stabbing them both to death while they slept. I was assigned a new counselor to meet with me every week in Santa Barbara, since Colin and Sasha no longer worked for the company. My new counselor was named Robert, a UCSB student who was 1 year older than me. I had coffee with him a few times, and we went volunteering together twice, in an effort to get me out of my room and doing activities. Nothing conducive to attaining the life I desire came out of these meetings, but the social interaction he provided was pleasant, and it gave me an outlet to express myself. I visited my mother's house quite often in the autumn. To my extreme rage, I discovered that my sister now had a boyfriend, and that she had lost her virginity. She had casually dated boys in the past, but never to the serious extent that she did with this one. This one was a half-white, half-Mexican named Samuel, and I immediately took an intense disliking to him when I was first introduced to him. He seemed like the typical obnoxious Slav that most young girls are sexually attracted to. Georgia invited him to my mother's house all the time, and it angered me to watch him lurking about, eating my mother's food and drinks, and making use of my mother's house. He was freeloading off my mother, and she didn't even realize it. I eventually grew to hate him after I heard him having sex with my sister. I arrived at the house one day, my mother being at work, and heard the sounds of Samuel plunging his penis into my sister's vagina through her closed room door, along with my sister's moans. I stood there and listened to it all. So my sister, who was 4 years younger than me, managed to lose her virginity.
Whoa. I think there's only one thing I could say to describe that. So, what kind of fucking weirdo sits outside of his sister's room and listens to her having sex? That is really creepy.
Him to my mother's house all the time, and it angered me to watch him lurking about, eating my mother's food and drinks, and making use of my mother's house. He was freeloading off my mother, and she didn't even realize it. I eventually grew to hate him after I heard him having sex with my sister. I arrived at the house one day, my mother being at work, and heard the sound of Samuel plunging his penis into my sister's vagina through her closed room door, along with my sister's moans. I stood there and listened to it all. So my sister, who was 4 years younger than me, managed to lose her virginity before I did. It reminded me of how pathetic I was, that at the age of 22, I was still a virgin. I hated her boyfriend as well. My sister said that he's been with other girls before her, and I'm sure he lost his virginity at a much younger age. It is such an injustice. The slob doesn't even have a car, and he is able to get girlfriends, while I drive a BMW and get no attention from any girls whatsoever. My sister even showed me a picture of one of his ex-girlfriends, a pretty brunette white girl. My hatred towards him only intensified after that. I refused to speak to him whenever he came over, and I constantly pestered my mother to ban him from the house, but she refused to heed my demands. Even worse, she constantly talked about him admiringly. He reminded me of Leo Bubenheim, a typical obnoxious boy who has been able to experience a great sex life from a young age. An enemy had now infiltrated the household of my mother, the one place in the whole world where I've always sought refuge from injustice. Things were getting too out of hand. Grandma Jinx came to visit Father's house in late October. When she last visited, she resolved an intense conflict between me, my father, and Sumaya. In a way, this recent visit paralleled the last one, since I was having conflicts with Sumaya this time as well, just not to the same extreme. I went over to Father's house to see my grandmother. She suggested that I take her out for a coffee, and I knew just the place. I took her to...
Let me skip ahead a bit. This is really boring. Let's see here. Okay.
I wanted to set an exact date on a normal Isla Vista party weekend, and once I set the date, I will never change it. After a lot of thinking and consideration, I concluded to bring about the Day of Retribution on Saturday, April 26, 2014. In the first months of 2014, which are the last months of my life, I tried to make the most out of every day. There was no a single day where I stayed in my room. Every morning, I set out in my BMW to go on adventures around the vicinity of Santa Barbara and Montecito, and I wouldn't return until late in the night. I went on hikes in the mountains of Montecito, wandered around aimlessly in beautiful parks, took strolls along the beach, sipped lattes at various cafes, and watched the sun set in my many contemplation spots, staying there until the stars lit up the night sky. Every time I did this though, there was no escaping the sight of young couples doing the exact same thing together. It made me even more eager for the Day of Retribution to come. My life was a living hell, and that hell needed to come to an end. I had enough extra money saved up to live comfortably and indulgently before I die. I didn't spend all of it though, for I still needed supplies that were vital to my plans. First, I needed to buy a third handgun, just in case one of them jams. I needed 2 working handguns at the same time, as that was how I planned to commit suicide, with 2 simultaneous shots to the head. I also needed to buy magazine clips and ammunition, as well as knives and carrying cases for my equipment. Even in the first months of 2014, leading up to the tragic day in April, the little twinge of hope inside me never faded. It remained, as if it were a tiny, flickering flame of a candle in a dark room. I suppose that little flame is what prompted me to actually attend the 2 spring semester classes I registered for at SBCC. That lasted a good 2 weeks, before I realized how pointless it was and dropped them. There was no hope now, and I had to accept it, after going through every single
Well, he has to die in the LARPiest way possible.
single fantasy I had about how I would punish my enemies. I started to detail all of my exact plans for how the Day of Retribution will play out. On the day before the Day of Retribution, I will start the first phase of my vengeance, silently killing as many people as I can around Isla Vista by luring them into my apartment through some form of trickery. The first people I would have to kill are my 2 housemates, to secure the entire apartment for myself as my personal torture and killing chamber. After that, I will start luring people into my apartment, knock them out with a hammer, and slit their throats. I will torture some of the good-looking people before I kill them, assuming that the good-looking ones had the best sex lives. All of that pleasure they had in life, I will punish by bringing them pain and suffering. I have lived a life of pain and suffering, and it was time to bring that pain to people who actually deserve it. I will cut them, flay them, strip all the skin off their flesh, and pour boiling water all over them while they are still alive, as well as any other form of torture I could possibly think of. When they are dead, I will behead them and keep their heads in a bag, for their heads will play a major role in the final phase. This first phase will represent my vengeance against all of the men who have had pleasurable sex lives while I've had to suffer. Things will be fair once I make them suffer as I did. I will finally even the score. The second phase will take place on the Day of Retribution itself, just before the climactic massacre. The second phase will represent my war on women. I will punish all females for the crime of depriving me of sex. They have starved me of sex for my entire youth, and gave that pleasure to other men. In doing so, they took many years of my life away. I cannot kill every single female on earth, but I can deliver a devastating blow that will shake all of them to the core of their wicked hearts. I will attack the very girls who represent everything I hate in the female gender, the hottest sorority of UCSB. After doing a lot of extensive research within the last year, I found out that the sorority with the most beautiful girls is Alpha Phi sorority. I know exactly where their house is, and I've sat outside it in my car to stalk them many times. Alpha Phi sorority is full of hot, beautiful blonde girls. The kind of girls I've always desired but was never able to have because they all look down on me. They are all spoiled, heartless, wicked bitches. They think they are superior to me, and if I ever tried to ask one on a date, they would reject me cruelly. I will sneak into their house at around 9:00 p.m. on the Day of Retribution, just before all of the partying starts, and slaughter every single one of them with my guns and knives. If I have time, I will set their whole house on fire. Then we shall see who the superior one really is. The final phase of the Day of Retribution will be my ultimate showdown in the streets of Isla Vista. On the morning before, I will drive down to my father's house to kill my little brother, denying him of the chance to grow up to surpass me, along with my stepmother Smaya, as she will be in the way. My father will be away on one of his business trips, so thankfully I won't have to deal with him. If he didn't go away on that...
So he literally wants to go and kill his brother because... So his brother won't go up to have sex when he didn't. Yeah.
That trip, I might even have to postpone the whole plan because of my fear that I might hesitate if I have to kill him. Once I've taken care of my brother and stepmother, I will switch over to the Mercedes SUV and drive it back up to Isla Vista. I will use it as one of my killing machines against my enemies. An SUV will cause a lot more damage than my BMW coupe. After I have killed all of the sorority girls at the Alpha Phi house, I will quickly get into the SUV before the police arrive, assuming they would arrive within 3 minutes. I will then make my way to Del Playa, splattering as many of my enemies as I can with the SUV, and shooting anyone I don't splatter. I can only imagine how sweet it will be to ram the SUV into all of those groups of popular young people who I've always witnessed walking right in the middle of the road as if they are better than everyone else. When they are writhing in pain, their bodies broken and dying after I splatter them, they will fully realize their crimes. Once I reach Del Playa Street, I will dump the bag of severed heads I had saved from my previous victims, proclaiming to everyone how much I've made them all suffer.
Yep.
Everyone on Del Playa Street. I will pull up next to a house party and fire bullets at everyone partying on the front yard. I will specifically target the good-looking people, and all of the couples. After I have destroyed a house party, I will continue down Del Playa, destroying everything and everyone. When I see the first police car come to their rescue, I will drive away as fast as I can, shooting and ramming anyone in my path until I find a suitable place to finally end my life. To end my life, I will quickly swallow all of the Xanax and Vicodin pills I have left, along with an ample amount of hard liquor. Immediately after imbibing this mixture, I will shoot myself in the head with 2 of my handguns simultaneously. If the gunshots don't kill me, the deadly drug mixture eventually will. I will not suffer being captured and sent to prison. I must plan this very efficiently. Nothing can go wrong. It needs to be perfect. This is now my sole purpose on this world. My plans will come to fruition, and I mustn't let anyone stop me. On the week leading up to date I set for the day of Retribution, I uploaded several videos onto YouTube in order to express my views and feelings to the world, though I don't plan on uploading my ultimate video until minutes before the attack, because on the video I will talk about exactly why I'm doing this. I titled one of the videos I uploaded, "Why Do Girls Hate Me So Much?" in which I asked the entire population of women the question I wanted to ask them for so many years. Why do they hate me so much? Why have they never fancied me? Why do they give their love and sex to other men, but not me, even though I deserve them more? In the video, I show that I am the perfect, magnificent gentleman, worthy of having a beautiful girlfriend.
Supreme gentleman.
To get a girlfriend. It is my attempt to reason with the female gender, to ask them why they have mistreated me. I was hoping I would get some sort of answer from girls. In fact, a small part of me was even hoping that a girl would see the video and contact me to give me a chance to go on a date. That alone would have prevented the day of Retribution, if one girl had just given me one chance. But no. As expected, I got absolutely no response from any girls. The only responses I got were from other men who called me names and made fun of me. Women don't care about me at all. They won't even deign to tell me why they mistreated me. This just shows how evil and sadistic they are. Oh well, they will realize the gravity of their crimes when I slaughter them all on the day of Retribution. How dare they reject a magnificent gentleman like me? As April 26th drew ever closer, I prepared myself to the fullest extent. All I had left to do was finish writing this story and film my final video. But then, on Thursday, April 24th, I woke up with a terrible cold. I rarely ever get colds. I've always had a strong immune system. It was as if fate itself was trying to stop me from doing it. But what other reason do I have for living? Alas, there was no way I could carry out my plans if I had a cold. Everything had to be perfect. In addition, I found out that father had arrived home 2 days earlier than he originally said he would, so if I had indeed went forth with my plans, I would have had to kill my father, which I wouldn't be mentally prepared for. I hastily decided to postpone it to Saturday, May 24th, 2014. I would definitely be fully recovered from my cold by then. This will also give me a few more weeks of life, and more time to prepare. A few days earlier, I felt so ready to finally strike back at women and humanity, with all my rage and hatred. I was profoundly eager to do it. But for some strange reason, having a few more weeks of life made me feel relieved. I took in a deep breath and relaxed. Coupled with my hate-fueled eagerness to carry out my act of revenge, there was also an extreme sense of fear inside me. Part of me still didn't want to do it. It will mean my death, and I have always been afraid of death. I didn't want to be in Isla Vista on April 26th, the day I previously planned on carrying out my plans. Hearing all of my enemies partying and having a good time on the day I was supposed to kill them all would be too much to bear. I immediately called my mother and asked her if I can stay at her house for the whole weekend, exaggerating my illness so that she would let me. While there, I visited a doctor to ask about the condition of my cold, and spent the weekend in deep, peaceful contemplation. Upon my return to Santa Barbara, I assured to myself that this was it. May 24th, 2014 was the final date. There is no postponing it anymore, no backing out. If I don't do this, then I only have a future filled with more loneliness and rejection ahead of me, devoid of sex, love, and enjoyment. I have to do it. It's the only thing I can do. May 24th is the absolute last weekend in the spring semester in which I can carry out this plan efficiently. After May 24th, the spring semester at SBCC will end, and all of the SBCC students will go back to their hometowns, which means less enemies to kill in Isla Vista. Sure, UCSB would still be in session, but I want to kill both UCSB and SBCC students. The day of Retribution is my sole purpose on this world, and I'm ready. After only a week passed since I uploaded those videos on YouTube, I heard a knock on my apartment door. I opened it to see about 7 police officers asking for me. As soon as I saw those cops, the biggest fear I had ever felt in my life overcame me. I had the striking and devastating fear that someone had somehow discovered what I was planning to do, and reported me for it. If that was the case, the police would have searched my room, found all of my guns and weapons, along with my writings about what I plan to do with them. I would have been thrown in jail, denied of the chance to exact revenge on my enemies. I can't imagine a hell darker than that. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, but it was so close. Apparently, someone saw my videos and became instantly suspicious of me. They called some sort of health agency, who called the police to check up on me. The police told me it was my mother who called them, but my mother told me it was the health agency. My mother had watched the videos and was very disturbed by them. I don't suppose I'll ever know the full truth of who called the police on me. The police interrogated me outside for a few minutes, asking me if I had suicidal thoughts. I tactfully told them that it was all a misunderstanding, and they finally left. If they had demanded to search my room, that would have ended everything. For a few horrible seconds I thought it was all over. When they left, the biggest wave of relief swept over me. It was so scary, it was all because of the videos. I must have expressed too much anger in them. I immediately took most of them off of YouTube, and planned to re-upload them a few days before the day of Retribution. This incident made me realize that I needed to be extra careful. I can't let anyone become suspicious of me. All it takes is for one person to call the police.
Let's see here. Let me skip ahead a bit. He rambles on so much. Let's see here.
I am not part of the human race. Humanity has rejected me. The females of the human species have never wanted to mate with me, so how could I possibly consider myself part of humanity? Humanity has never accepted me among them, and now I know why. I am more than human. I am superior to them all. I am Elliot Rodger. Magnificent, glorious, supreme, eminent, divine. I am the closest thing there is to a living God. Humanity is a disgusting, depraved, and evil species. It is my purpose to punish them all. I will purify the world of everything that is wrong with it. On the day of Retribution, I will truly be a powerful God, punishing everyone I deem to be impure and depraved.
What the fuck? He literally claimed to be God. What the fuck? He was such a supreme gentleman. He was not only the supreme gentleman, he was a divine gentleman. Okay, I'm gonna replay that.
I am not part of the human race. Humanity has rejected me. The females of the human species have never wanted to mate with me, so how could I possibly consider myself part of humanity? Humanity has never accepted me among them, and now I know why. I am more than human. I am superior to them all. I am Elliot Rodger. Magnificent, glorious, supreme, eminent, divine. I am the closest thing there is to a living God. Humanity is a disgusting, depraved, and evil species. It is my purpose to punish them all. I will purify the world of everything that is wrong with it. On the day of Retribution, I will truly be a powerful God, punishing everyone I deem to be impure and depraved. Epilogue, and that is how my tragic life ends. Who would have thought my life would turn out this way? I didn't. There was a time when I thought this world was a good and happy place. As a child, my whole world was innocent. It wasn't until I went through puberty and started desiring girls that my whole life turned into a living hell. I desired girls, but girls never desired me back. There is something very wrong with that. It is an injustice that cannot go unpunished. There is no way I could live a happy life with such a scenario. Not only did I have to waste my entire youth suffering in loneliness and unfulfilled desire, but I had to live with the knowledge that other boys my age were able to have all of the experiences I craved for. It is absolutely unfair and unjust. In addition, I had to suffer the shame of other boys respecting me less because I didn't get any girls. Everyone knew I was a virgin. Everyone knew how undesirable I was to girls, and I hated everyone just for knowing it. I want people to think that girls adore me. I want to feel worthy. There is no pride in living as a lonely, unwanted outcast. I wouldn't even call it living. I am not meant to live such a pathetic, miserable life. That is not my place in this world. I will not bow down and accept such a horrific fate. If humanity will not give me a worthy place among them, then I will destroy them all. I am better than all of them. I am a god. Exacting my retribution is my way of proving my true worth to the world. In the midst of my suffering, I have been able to see the world much clearer than others. I have vision that other people lack. Through my suffering, I have been able to see just how twisted and wrong this world really is. The current state of humanity is what makes it wrong. I look at the human race and I see only violence and depravity, all because of an act known as sexuality. Sex is by far the most evil concept in existence. The fact that life itself exists through sex just proves that life is flawed. The act of sex gives human beings a tremendous amount of pleasure. Pleasure they don't deserve. No one deserves to experience so much pleasure, especially since some humans get to experience it while some are denied it. When a man has sex with a beautiful woman, he probably feels like he is in heaven. But the world is not supposed to be heaven. For some humans to actually be able to feel such heights of heavenly pleasure is selfish and hedonistic. The ultimate evil behind sexuality is the human female. They are the main instigators of sex. They control which men get it and which men don't. Women are flawed creatures, and my mistreatment at their hands has made me realize this sad truth. There is something very twisted and wrong with the way their brains are wired. They think like beasts, and in truth, they are beasts. Women are incapable of having morals or thinking rationally. They are completely controlled by their depraved emotions and vile sexual impulses. Because of this, the men who do get to experience the pleasures of sex and the privilege of breeding are the men who women are sexually attracted to. The stupid.
Okay, let's see here.
In fully realizing these truths about the world, I have created the ultimate and perfect ideology of how a fair and pure world would work. In an ideal world, sexuality would not exist. It must be outlawed. In a world without sex, humanity will be pure and civilized. Men will grow up healthily without having to worry about such a barbaric act. All men will grow up fair and equal, because no man will be able to experience the pleasures of sex while others are denied it. The human race will evolve to an entirely new level of civilization, completely devoid of all the impurity and degeneracy that exists today. In order to completely abolish sex, women themselves would have to be abolished. All women must be quarantined like the plague they are, so that they can be used in a manner that actually benefits a civilized society. In order to carry this out, there must exist a new and powerful type of government, under the control of one divine ruler, such as myself. The ruler that establishes this new order would have complete control over every aspect of society, in order to direct it towards a good and pure place. At the disposal of this government, there needs to be a highly trained army of fanatically loyal troops, in order to enforce such revolutionary laws. The first strike against women will be to quarantine all of them in concentration camps. At these camps, the vast majority of the female population will be deliberately starved to death. That would be an efficient and fitting way to kill them all off. I would take great pleasure and satisfaction in condemning every single woman on earth to starve to death. I would have an enormous tower built just for myself, where I can oversee the entire concentration camp and gleefully watch them all die. Can't have them, no one will, I'd imagine thinking to myself as I oversee this. Women represent everything that is unfair with this world, and in order to make the world a fair place, they must all be eradicated. A few women will be spared, however, for the sake of reproduction. These women would be kept and bred in secret labs. There, they will be artificially inseminated with sperm samples in order to produce offspring. Their depraved nature will slowly be bred out of them in time. Future generations of men would be oblivious to these remaining women's existence, and that is for the best. If a man grows up without knowing of the existence of women, there will be no desire for sex. Sexuality will completely cease to exist. Love will cease to exist. There will no longer be any imprint of such concepts in the human psyche. It is the only way to purify the world. In such a pure world, the man's mind can develop to greater heights than ever before. Future generations will live their lives free of having to worry about the barbarity of sex and women, which will enable them to expand their intelligence and advance the human race to a state of perfect civilization. It is such a shameful pity that my idea world cannot be created. I realized long ago that there is no way I could possibly rise to such a level of power in my lifetime with the way the world is now. Such a thing will never become a reality for me, but it did give me something to fantasize about as I burned with hatred towards all women for rejecting me throughout the years. This whole viewpoint and ideology of abolishing sex stems from being deprived of it all my life. If I cannot have it, I will do everything I can to destroy it. My orchestration of the day of retribution is my attempt to do everything in my power to destroy everything I cannot have. All of those beautiful girls I've desired so much in my life, but can never have because they despise and loathe me, I will destroy. All of those popular people who live hedonistic lies of pleasure, I will destroy, because they never accepted me as one of them. I will kill them all and make them suffer, just as they have made me suffer. It is only fair. Why do things have to be this way? I'm sure that is the question everyone will be asking after the day of retribution is over. They will all be asking why. Indeed, why? That is the question I've had for everyone throughout all my years of suffering. Why was I condemned to live a life of misery and worthlessness while other men were able to experience the pleasures of sex and love with women? Why do things have to be this way? I asked all of you. All I ever wanted was to love women, and in turn to be loved by them back. Their behavior towards me has only earned my hatred, and rightfully so. I am the true victim in all of this. I am the good guy. Humanity struck at me first by condemning me to experience so much suffering. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. I didn't start this war. I wasn't the one who struck first. But I will finish it by striking back. I will punish everyone. And it will be beautiful. Finally, at long last, I can show the world my true worth.
Okay. So that was My Twisted World. That is the story of Elliot Rodgers. He just went fucking apeshit at the end. Like, this whole book was like a delusion. This whole book is very obviously him just being like fucking crazy. But in the last like epilogue, he just did this massive rant about his fantasy. Like, it's bizarre. It's like something like a 6-year-old would come up with, but with all of the aspects of the adult. I'm sorry I'm kind of stammering here, but it's like, what can you really even say about that? I mean, what can I say to comment? I think it kind of speaks for itself. That is, like, the fucking craziest rant I've ever heard. Ugh. And so he went out and completely failed at being an hero. Yeah, okay, fine. So that is My Twisted World. Maybe I'll make a video about him and a video about Movie Bob like just one where I just cover like a lot more brief, like a lot more short and concise. Maybe I'll have that part in, though. That part is fucking insane that he would write that down completely unironically. Like, that's something I'd write as the death to Normie's party as like a joke. But yeah, that guy is the supreme gentleman. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I probably won't do one of these for a little while, but I'll put up a cut of this entire thing, which will probably be like 6 hours long, but it is what it is. Nothing I can do, but I digress. Have a good evening, everybody. Just, if you feel sad, just keep in mind that at least you're not